Good morning, everyone. I'm Dorothy Taylor. I'm currently a doctoral student in the Ergonomics and Safety Lab at the University of Utah. And what I will be presenting today is a part of a larger collaborative work with the University of Utah's College of Nursing on creating a safer patient room environment. So today I will be presenting on the evaluation of fall risk episodes during the self-selected sit to stand and walk strategies of the elderly patient. So a quick overview of my presentation. First, I will give some context regarding what we know about elderly patient falls and how that has motivated this study. Then I'll go through our methods, followed by the results. And finally, I will conclude with what this means for future work. So we know that there are an estimated 1 million elderly patient falls every year in hospitals across the United States. And while the rate of elderly patient falls varies widely, essentially, there is about one elderly patient fall every 11. We also know that it now costs over $50 billion every year, and that since 2018, these financial expenses are the sole responsibility of the hospital, which is very motivating for hospitals to implement protocols that help decrease elderly patient falls. And while there have been numerous approaches in the past, there remains to be a deeper look taken at the actual fall mechanism. What do we know about the circumstances of these falls? What are they doing when they fall? What are the movements when instability occurs that they cannot recover from? The only patient fall information available to the public comes from a study of a long-term care facility and indicates that 85% of elderly patient falls occurs in the patient room, with a large portion of falls occurring during bed egress. What I will be sharing today is a pilot study that includes 15 randomly selected participants from our larger study of 77. The objectives of this study were to first identify the temporal location of instability within the sit to stand and walk task, and second, to evaluate the effect of bed height and bouncing egress strategy on the dynamic stability during sit to stand and walk. These two objectives were accomplished by using a fall risk episode, which I will define later, as a proxy for a fall. The demographics of this study include both male and female subjects with an overall average age of 67.5 years. The subjects were grouped according to low, moderate, and high fall risk using the Morse Fall Scale assessment tool for fall risk, and each subject performed up to 9 unique trials for a total of 122 trials. We simulated a hospital patient room focused on the patient bed and a patient chair. A harness system was included to prevent any falls should the subject become imbalanced and unable to recover. Both video and 3D motion capture were recorded. The bed height was adjusted per subject based on a percentage of the subject's lower leg. The lower leg length was equal to the distance from the floor to a subject's lateral tibial plateau while sitting with a 90-degree angle, as shown here. The compressed mattress height was also measured while the subject was seated on the bed. The patient-specific bed height condition, also referred to as deck height, was calculated by subtracting the compressed mattress height from the specific percentage of the lower leg length. Calculating bed height using 95, 110, and 125% of the subject's lower leg length gives us the three bed height conditions of low, medium, and high bed, respectively. The bed was outfitted with the ability to change bed rail type, and we used three bed rail conditions, one being large bed rail, a small bed rail, and no bed rail. Bed egress strategies were grouped into either bouncing racking strategy or a non-bouncing racking strategy. Fall risk episodes during the sit to stand and walk task were visually identified as moments of instability during which the subject either self-corrected or was caught by the harness or actually fell back. An example of a low fall risk subject stands up pretty smoothly, continuous forward movement to initiate gait. This is an example of a high fall risk subject who, upon attempting to move, has multiple movements, has struggles to extend, and falls back down. He repeats this process and again rises. This time he rocks back on his heels but is caught by the harness. The sit to stand and walk task is defined as the first movement upon verbal directive to stand and walk to the chair through to the first 2 steps of gait. This includes traditional sit to walk phases, as well as what I have published as the stand preparation phase, which includes movements such as scooting, bouncing, rocking, that are prior to a successful seat-off. And our results show that the frequency of trials with fall risk episodes increases with increasing assessed fall risk, progressing from about only 3% to nearly 40% occurring among the high fall risk group. Further stratifying by bed height, we can see that the overwhelming majority of fall risk episodes occur at the low bed height among all fall risk levels. Though with increasing fall risk level, we can see that the fall risk episodes occur at medium and high bed heights as well, though not as frequently. Finally, when we look at the use of the bouncing egress strategy, which are these orange squares, there appears to be a relationship between bouncing and fall risk episodes, which are the yellow squares below. So for example, for the high fall risk group at the low bed height, 60% of the trials were bouncing egress strategy. Nearly 78% of those bouncing egress trials had a fall risk episode. When we look at the distribution of fall risk episodes throughout the phases of sit to stand and walk, we can see that the majority of these fall risk episodes occur during the stand phase, where 62.9% occurred. As we take a closer look specifically at the stand phase, we can see some differences between traditional sit to walk and the elderly sit to stand and walk. That may be a cause for fall risk episodes. From seat off to first toe off, this complex extension movement, while generally smooth and continuous for a sit to walk, tends to be discontinuous for the elderly, as they tend to pause after rising and before initiating gait. Additionally, whereas a healthy sit to walk, upper extremities are generally not used. The high fall risk elderly subjects tend to rely heavily upon upper extremity use, likely due to reduced core and lower extremity strength. In conclusion, we have shown that the low bed height has the greatest number of trials with fall risk episodes, making it the least safe bed height. We have also shown that the bouncing egress strategy is employed more often by high fall risk individuals. We are currently looking at the complete larger data set, which may provide statistical justification for both an appropriate bed height for safer egress and guidance on a safer egress strategy for elderly patients. I'd like to acknowledge AHRQ and NIOSH who helped fund this study. These are my references, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions now.